Imagine trying to pay your rent next month. You walk up to your landlord, but instead of a cheque or a bank transfer, you are leading two slightly confused goats. Or picture yourself at the grocery store checkout. The cashier rings up your total and you offer them a perfectly good PlayStation 4. This sounds completely insane today, a scene from a strange comedy sketch. We live in a world of digital payments, plastic cards, and paper bills. The idea of trading physical objects for our daily needs feels ancient and impractical. It feels like a system designed to fail in our complex, fast-paced world. Yet, for thousands upon thousands of years, this was not a joke. This was the global economy. Before money existed, this was essentially how the world worked. This system of direct trade is called barter. It was humanity's first attempt at creating an economic network, a way for people to get what they needed without having to make everything themselves. It was a simple solution for a simpler time, built on the direct exchange of goods and services. A bag of grain for a clay pot, a sharp axe for a warm cloak, a day of labour for a basket of food. This system was the foundation of human cooperation and the beginning of specialisation. It allowed communities to grow and thrive in ways that would have been impossible otherwise. But as you can imagine from our goat for rent scenario, it was also filled with incredible headaches and inefficiencies. It was a clumsy, frustrating, and often unfair way to conduct business. The problems with barter became so significant that they eventually pushed humanity to invent one of its most powerful tools, a tool that would reshape civilization itself. In this video, we will travel back in time. We will explore a world without coins, without cash, and without credit cards. We will see how barter really worked in small tribes and growing cities. We will uncover the major problems that made it so difficult, from finding the right person to trade with to figuring out how many chickens a cow is worth. And finally, we will understand how these very frustrations and headaches forced our ancestors to invent the concept of money, changing the course of history forever. Let's try a little thought experiment. Imagine you wake up tomorrow and every form of money has vanished. All the cash in your wallet is just paper. The numbers in your bank account app have been replaced with zeros. Credit cards are just useless slivers of plastic. All the complex systems we rely on to get through the day have simply disappeared overnight. It is a frightening thought, isn't it? Our entire modern world is built upon this invisible framework of value. Without it, how would you get your morning coffee? How would you buy food for dinner? How would you pay for the electricity that powers your home? How would you pay for the fuel that gets you to work? In this new moneyless world, you would be forced to rely on what you have and what you can do. Suddenly, your possessions and your skills become your only currency. If you wanted to get some groceries from the local farmer, you might have to offer something in return. Perhaps you have a spare blanket, or maybe you are good at fixing things. You could offer to repair the farmer's broken fence in exchange for a week's supply of vegetables. The world would instantly become a place of direct negotiation, where every single transaction is a unique deal struck between two people. This is the fundamental reality of a world without money. If you want something, you have to find someone who has it and is willing to trade it for something you own or a service you can perform. Need a new pair of shoes? You might have to offer to babysit the shoemaker's children for a few evenings. Want someone to fix your leaky roof? You could trade them a portion of the firewood you chopped last winter. It's a very personal and immediate form of economy, where your value is not an abstract number in a bank, but a tangible collection of your assets and abilities. This system forces a different way of thinking about value and community. Your reputation as a reliable worker or a creator of quality goods becomes paramount. Your ability to connect with others and negotiate fair trades would be your most important financial skill. You wouldn't just be a consumer, you would be a producer, a trader, and a negotiator all at once. This direct exchange of goods and services is the oldest form of commerce in human history. It is a system known as barter, and for most of our time on this planet, it was the only way to do business. So, what exactly is barter? At its core, the definition is simple. Barter is the direct exchange of goods and services. No money intermediary. It's where I give you something you want, and you give me something I want. No cash, no credit, no debt, a straight swap. We still see echoes today. Kids trading stickers in the playground, neighbours watching each other's pets on vacation. The most intuitive economic system imaginable. Early human societies, small communities, or nomadic tribes. Imagine a village in a valley. One family, hunting. Another, pottery. A third, weaving. Specialization avoided everyone doing everything. Barter let people focus on what they did best. The hunter trades surplus meat to the potter for cooking vessels. The potter trades extra pots to the weaver for a warm cloak. 3 huts: meat to potter, pot to weaver, cloth to hunter. This web of exchanges gave access to more and better goods. It encouraged cooperation and strengthened social bonds. It became the engine of early economic progress. A farmer with surplus grain trades for a sturdy new axe from the blacksmith. The blacksmith, fed by the farmer's grain, perfects his craft. He creates better tools for everyone. Barter wasn't just swapping items. It created a cycle of mutual benefit. Communities prospered and grew. In the dawn of human society, long before the rise of sprawling cities and complex economies, people lived in small, intimate groups. These were often extended family units or tight-knit tribes where everyone knew everyone else. This personal connection was the bedrock upon which the entire system of barter was built. As barter became a regular feature of daily life, it naturally gave rise to specialization. In any group of people, some individuals will have more talent or a greater passion for certain tasks than others. One person might have the steady hand and patience required for crafting intricate jewelry from shells and bone. Another might possess the physical strength and courage to be an effective hunter of large game. A third might have a keen eye for finding the best clay deposits and the skill to shape them into durable pottery. It would be a colossal waste of effort for every individual to attempt to master all these skills equally. Barter provided the mechanism that allowed these budding specialists to flourish. The skilled potter did not need to spend her days hunting, a task she might be poor at. Instead, she could dedicate her time to what she did best, making pots. She could produce far more pots than her own family would ever need. This surplus became her economic power. She could then trade these extra pots with the hunter for meat, with the farmer for grain, and with the weaver for clothing. This arrangement was beneficial for everyone involved. The potter got a varied and reliable supply of necessities, and the rest of the community got access to high-quality pottery. This process created a virtuous cycle of innovation and improvement. By focusing on a single craft, specialists had the time and incentive to experiment, refine their techniques, and become true masters of their trade. The toolmaker wasn't just making the same axe over and over, he was learning which stones were strongest, how to shape them for better balance, and how to haft them more securely. This constant improvement meant that the tools available to the entire community became progressively better, making everyone more productive. Specialization, fueled by barter, was a key driver of early technological and cultural advancement. Ultimately, this division of labor made the entire community more resilient and prosperous. It created a web of interdependence where each person's success was linked to the success of others. The hunter relied on the toolmaker for his spearheads, the toolmaker relied on the farmer for his food, and the farmer relied on the hunter for hides to make leather goods. No single person could stand alone. This complex network of exchange, all conducted without a single coin changing hands, allowed early human societies to grow beyond simple subsistence and begin building the foundations of more complex civilizations. In these early bartering societies, not all trades were immediate. The system was not always a simple, on-the-spot swap. Often, exchanges were based on a concept social scientists call reciprocity. A trade could be delayed over time, like informal favors and obligations. You built up a bank of goodwill and social credit with your neighbors. This worked because of deep-seated trust in small communities. Example, a fisherman brings in an oversized catch. He shares surplus fish with his neighbors. Toolmaker, farmer. No explicit agreement on repayment or timing. It was simply understood as a favor. Later, the toolmaker finishes sharp knives and gives one to the fisherman. Later, the farmer gives a generous portion of grain at harvest. And these delayed exchanges were incredibly useful. They acted as communal insurance. They smoothed out unpredictable booms and busts. The hunt might fail one week, a neighbour's farm might have surplus vegetables. You could receive food now with the understanding you'd repay when you could. Reciprocity helped prevent a single family from starving after short-term misfortune. It bound the community, a safety net of mutual obligation and trust. This currency of trust was as valuable as traded goods. Your reputation for honouring obligations mattered. Someone who always took and never gave would be isolated. Others would stop extending favours, cut off from communal support. Social pressure and desire for good standing kept the system honest. Before laws contracts coins, it was trust that made the economy turn, ensuring what was given today would be returned tomorrow. As generations passed, the simple, tight-knit villages of our ancestors began to grow. Successful farming techniques led to food surpluses, which could support larger populations. Small hamlets slowly expanded into bustling villages, and some villages even grew into the world's first towns. This growth brought exciting new opportunities. Instead of just a handful of families, you now had hundreds or even thousands of people living together. The number of specialists exploded. You didn't just have one potter, you might have several, each with their own unique style. Masons, weavers, brewers, metalworkers. With more people and more goods, the nature of trade had to evolve. The personal, trust-based system of reciprocity that worked so well in a tribe of 50 people began to break down when dealing with hundreds of semi-strangers. To solve this, a new innovation appeared, the central market. This was a designated place where people from the town and surrounding countryside could gather on a specific day to trade their wares. The farmer would load up his cart with sacks of barley, the shepherd would drive in a few sheep, and the craftsman would lay out his finished pots and tools on a blanket. The market became a vibrant, noisy, and chaotic hub of economic activity. This new scale of trade also opened up long-distance connections. A coastal town, rich in fish and salt, could now trade with an inland village that had access to good timber or valuable obsidian for making sharp blades. Traders organised caravans, loading up donkeys or camels with local products and travelling for weeks or months to distant lands to exchange them for exotic goods. Ships began to ply the coastlines and rivers, connecting communities that had never interacted before. People in Mesopotamia could trade for lapis lazuli from the mountains of modern-day Afghanistan, or tin from Anatolia. The world was becoming more connected, all through the mechanism of barter. But this expansion came at a cost. As the number of people, the variety of goods, and the distances involved in trade all increased, the simple system of barter started to show serious cracks. What was once an elegant solution for small-scale exchange became a clumsy and frustrating ordeal on a larger stage. The very success and growth that barter had enabled were now creating a series of major problems that the system was ill-equipped to handle. The headaches were beginning, and they would push our ancestors to search for a better way of doing business. The age of simple trades was ending, and the age of complex economic problems was just beginning. The biggest and most frustrating problem with barter is something economists call the double coincidence of wants. And it sounds complicated, but the idea is actually very simple. For a trade to happen, you not only have to find someone who has what you want, but that person must also want what you have. Both sides of the trade have to line up perfectly. In a small village where you know everyone's needs, this might be manageable, but in a crowded market with dozens of strangers, it becomes a logistical nightmare. It introduces a huge amount of friction and wasted time into every single transaction. Imagine you are a farmer who has just harvested a large crop of wheat. You need a new pair of sturdy sandals, so you take a sack of your wheat to the market and find the shoemaker. This is the first coincidence. You found someone who has what you want, but when you offer him your wheat, he shakes his head. He already has plenty of grain from a trade he made earlier. What he really needs right now is a new clay pot for storing water. Your sack of wheat is useless to him. The trade fails because the second coincidence, him wanting what you have, is missing. Now your quest becomes much more complicated. You cannot get the shoes you need until you can find something the shoemaker wants. So you must wander through the market, carrying your heavy sack of wheat, looking for a potter. When you finally find one, you have to hope that she is in need of grain. If you are lucky, she is. You can then trade your wheat for a pot. But you don't actually want the pot. You are only acquiring it as a middle step to get what you truly need. Your journey is not over yet. Now you have to go all the way back to the shoemaker, pot in hand, and hope that he hasn't already traded his last pair of sandals to someone else. If all goes well, you can finally trade the pot for the sandals. You have spent your entire day walking around the market, searching and negotiating, just to make one simple transaction that would take seconds with money. This endless search for a chain of trades that satisfies everyone's wants was a massive drain on time and energy, making markets incredibly inefficient and commerce a deeply frustrating experience for everyone involved. Once you finally managed to solve the double coincidence of wants, you immediately ran into the next major hurdle, establishing a fair fair price. In a world without money, there is no common standard of value. Every single item is valued only in relation to every other item. This creates an explosion of complexity. When you walk into a market, you don't just have one price for each item, you have a different price for every possible pairing of items. This meant that every single trade required a fresh round of negotiation and haggling, often leading to arguments and unfair outcomes. Think about it from the perspective of a farmer with a cow to trade. How much is that cow worth? Well, it depends on what you want to trade it for. Is it worth 10 sheep, 20 sacks of grain, 50 clay pots, 100 woven blankets, 2 bronze axes? Each of these trades would need to be negotiated separately. The farmer would have to remember dozens, if not hundreds, of different prices for his cow. It's like trying to learn a new language for every single item you want to buy. The mental effort required was immense. This lack of a standard measure of value made trade subjective and ripe for disagreement. Let's say you are a chicken farmer who wants to acquire a cow. The cattle owner might demand 30 of your chickens for his animal. You might think that is far too high and argue that 15 is a fairer price. Who is right? There is no objective way to settle the dispute. The final price would likely come down to who was the better negotiator, who was more desperate to make the trade, or who was physically more imposing. This made commerce feel arbitrary and often left one party feeling like they had been cheated. The problem got even worse as more and more goods entered the market. If a market has only 10 different types of items, you already have 45 possible exchange rates to worry about. If it has 100 different items, that number skyrockets to 4,950 different exchange rates. As societies grew and trade expanded, this problem became completely unmanageable. People desperately needed a simpler way to think about value. They needed a common denominator, a single measuring stick that could be used to price everything, from a loaf of bread to a plot of land. Without it, large-scale trade was simply too chaotic to function smoothly. Let's imagine you've overcome the first 2 problems. You, the owner of a healthy cow, have found a baker who wants your cow and has the bread you want. You have even managed to agree on a fair price. Your cow is worth 1,000 loaves of bread. This seems like a great deal. The only problem is, you don't need 1,000 loaves of bread. You only need about 20 for your family for the next week. What do you do now? This brings us to the third major headache of barter, the problem of divisibility. Many of the most valuable goods used in trade simply cannot be divided into smaller units without destroying their value. You can't just saw off a leg of the cow and trade it for 20 loaves of bread. A live cow is a valuable, productive asset. It can provide milk, pull a plough, and produce calves. A cow's leg is just a piece of meat that will spoil quickly. The act of dividing the cow destroys most of its value. This problem applies to many other goods. A craftsman can't trade half of an axe for a few pieces of fruit. A farmer can't trade the front half of his plough for a new shirt. Many of the most common and important items in the ancient economy were lumpy and indivisible. This lack of divisibility severely limited the kinds of trades that could happen. It meant you often had to overpay for smaller items or forgo the trade entirely. If your cow is your only asset, you can't use it to make small, everyday purchases. You can't trade it for a little bit of salt, a single clay pot, or a bit of medicine. Your wealth is locked up in a form that is useless for minor transactions. This forced people to either find items of roughly equal value to trade, which was difficult, or to enter into complicated arrangements of credit and debt with the person they were trading with. For example, you might have to give the baker the entire cow and agree that he owes you the remaining 980 loaves of bread. You would then have to go back to him every day to collect your payment, hoping he remembers the deal and doesn't run out of flour. This brings back all the problems of trust and social memory that markets were supposed to help solve. The inability to make change, something we take for granted today, was a fundamental barrier. It made bartering for daily necessities incredibly impractical and pushed people to look for a medium of exchange that could be easily broken down into smaller parts. Section 5. The trouble with storage and scale. Beyond the immediate problems of making a single trade, barter also presented 2 massive long-term challenges: storing value and scaling up trade. Let's start with storing value. Wealth in a barter economy is your physical stockpile of goods. Barn full of grain, herd of cattle, storeroom filled with tools you have made. This is your life's savings. The problem is that most of these goods are not very durable. they do not hold their value well over time. This makes saving for the future a risky and often heartbreaking endeavour. Imagine you are a farmer who has had a fantastic harvest. You have more grain than you can possibly eat or trade right away, so you decide to save it for a lean year or for your old age. You store it carefully, but over the months and years it is vulnerable. Moisture can cause it to rot and mould. Rats and insects can eat it. Your entire savings could be wiped out by a leaky roof or an infestation of weevils. The same is true for livestock. Your prize-winning cow, your main store of wealth, could fall ill and die. Your herd of goats could be stolen. In a barter economy, wealth was fragile and perishable. This fragility made long-term financial planning nearly impossible. Furthermore, it made scaling up trade across long distances incredibly difficult and inefficient. Think back to the merchant organising a caravan to a faraway land. Transporting goods for barter is expensive and risky. A caravan of donkeys loaded with bulky sacks of grain or heavy clay pots is slow and vulnerable to bandits. A ship carrying live animals could be lost in a storm. Long-distance commerce was reserved for items very valuable for their weight: spices, rare metals, fine textiles. Even then, the problems of barter persisted and were magnified by distance and cultural differences. How do you negotiate the value of barley with someone who has never seen it and speaks a different language? How do you ensure the goods you receive in return are of the quality you expect? The clumsiness of direct exchange, the difficulty of establishing value, and the physical burden of transporting goods all conspired to make large-scale trade slow, inefficient, and profoundly confusing. For civilizations to grow, for empires to be built, and for a truly global economy to emerge, humanity desperately needed to overcome these limitations. The headaches of barter had become a brake on progress itself. Table of Contents, Part 5, Early Fixes, Proto-money and how barter pushed money, about 3 sections. Section 1. The search for a better way. The constant headaches of barter were not just minor inconveniences, they were major obstacles holding back economic progress. People were getting tired of the endless search for a double coincidence of wants. They were frustrated by the constant arguments over value. They were hamstrung by the inability to divide large assets or to save their wealth without it rotting or dying. As societies grew more complex, it became painfully obvious that the old system of direct trade was no longer fit for purpose. Humanity needed a fix. It needed an upgrade. This need didn't lead to the invention of coins overnight. Instead, it sparked a long period of creative experimentation. Across the globe, different cultures independently began to converge on a similar idea. They started to realise that the key to solving barter's problems was to find an intermediate good. Instead of trying to trade your specific item directly for the specific item you wanted, what if you could trade your item for something that almost everyone agreed was valuable? What if there was a go-between commodity that was widely accepted, not because everyone wanted to use it personally, but because they knew they could easily trade it away for something else later? This was a revolutionary conceptual leap. This wasn't a conscious invention by a single genius. It was a gradual, organic process of social discovery. In a market, people would have noticed that certain goods were in more consistent demand than others. Perhaps it was salt, a vital nutrient that everyone needed, and that was easy to store and divide. A farmer with grain might find it easier to trade his grain for blocks of salt first, because he knew that the shoemaker, the potter, and the weaver would all be willing to accept salt as payment. The salt wasn't the ultimate goal, but it was a tool that made the final transaction possible. Marketing animation. A person trades a cow for salt blocks, then uses salt blocks to buy a loaf of bread. This idea of an intermediary good began to catch on. In different regions, different items emerged as the local favourite. It had to be something that was desirable enough that people would accept it, but also something that solved some of barter's other problems. More durable than grain, more divisible than a cow, more portable than a pile of lumber. The search was on for items that could act as a bridge between wants, a measuring stick for value, and a container for wealth. Humanity was unknowingly laying the groundwork for money by identifying the very first forms of proto-money. Section 2. The rise of commodity money. This new solution, using a widely accepted intermediate good, is what we now call commodity money. It's a system where a useful commodity is chosen by a society to act as its medium of exchange. The key is that the item has value in and of itself. Even if you weren't using it as money, salt could be used to preserve food, grain could be eaten, cattle could be used for milk, cattle could be used for meat, chattel could be used for labour. This intrinsic value made it easier for people to trust the system and accept the commodity as payment. It felt safer than accepting a purely symbolic token because, in a worst-case scenario, you could always just use the commodity yourself. Different cultures adopted different commodities based on what was available and important to them. In ancient China, compressed bricks of tea became common forms of money. Cowrie shells from the coast became common forms of money. In parts of Africa and throughout the Roman Empire, salt was so valuable as a currency that it became the root of the word salary. In Mesoamerica, cacao beans were used for centuries to make small purchases in bustling Aztec markets. You could buy a turkey for 100 beans, or a canoe for a slightly larger amount. These items were all early attempts to solve the problems of barter in a practical way. These commodities were a huge improvement. Take the problem of divisibility. A cow is not divisible, but a sack of grain is. You can easily measure out a small amount to pay for bread, and a larger amount to pay for a tool. Cacao beans and cowrie shells were even better, as they were already small uniform units that could be counted out for purchases of any size. They also helped with the problem of value. Instead of thousands of exchange rates, everything could be priced in terms of a single commodity. A cow might be worth 50 sacks of grain, and a pot might be worth 2 sacks of grain. Suddenly, comparing value became much simpler. Commodity money also helped with storing wealth. While grain could still spoil, it was generally more durable and storable than fresh produce or meat. Salt, shells, and especially pieces of metal held their value extremely well over long periods. You could accumulate a stash of cowrie shells. Bronze rings and be confident that your wealth would still be there next year. This innovation made trade smoother, saving for the future more practical, and long-distance commerce more feasible. It wasn't a perfect system, but it was a massive step up from the chaos of pure barter. Section 3. From barter to currency. The final push. While commodity money solved many of barter's biggest headaches, it still had its own set of problems. Bulk was a major issue. Paying for something very expensive with grain or salt required transporting a huge quantity of the commodity, which was inconvenient and costly. Uniformity was another issue. Were all shells the same value? Was one sack of barley just as good as another? Quality control became a new source of arguments. Cattle were not easily divisible. Cattle were not portable. Cattle were not durable. The system was better, but it wasn't perfect. The final push toward modern money came from the limitations of commodity money itself. Of all the commodities used, metals proved most effective. Gold, silver, copper, highly durable, wouldn't rust or decay, scarce and desirable, used for jewellery and ornaments, easily divisible, cut silver without destroying value, extremely portable, small bag versus cart of grain. A small bag of silver could hold the same value as a cart full of grain, ideal for merchants, ideal for tax collectors, ideal for armies. Initially, metals were used raw, nuggets, rings, hack silver. Trades required weighing metal on a scale to determine its value. It was a huge improvement, but still clumsy. You had to carry a set of scales, and you had to trust the metal's purity. The final innovation solved weighing and purity once and for all. This is where governments and rulers stepped in. They took pieces of metal. They guaranteed weight and purity. They stamped them with an official seal. The stamp was a promise, a certification from a king, or from a temple. This was the birth of the coin. With this final step, the transition was complete. Humanity had moved to a flexible, efficient system of symbolic currency. Barter wasn't a failure. It was necessary. Its problems forced innovation, experimentation, and ultimately the invention that unlocked the modern economy: money. Section 1. Humanity's first economic system. So we have travelled back to a time before the familiar jingle of coins, the crisp rustle of banknotes. We have explored a world that ran on a completely different set of rules. This was the world of barter, humanity's very first economic system. It was born from the simple need to get something you don't have by trading something you do. For tens of thousands of years, this system of direct exchange was the engine of human progress. It allowed our ancestors to specialize, to share their skills, and to build communities based on cooperation and mutual reliance. It was the social glue that held small tribes together. In those small, intimate groups, barter worked beautifully. It was personal, built on a foundation of trust, lifelong relationships. The system of reciprocity, of giving today with the expectation of receiving tomorrow, created a powerful social safety net. It encouraged quality craftsmanship, a good reputation, as your social standing and your economic survival were one and the same. Barter was not just about swapping goods, it was about reinforcing the bonds of community. It got us trading, sharing, and thinking in new, cooperative ways, laying the groundwork for the complex societies that were to come. It was the right system for its time. But as we saw, the very success of this system led to its downfall. Villages grew into towns, towns into cities. The personal nature of barter broke down. The headaches began to multiply. The nightmare of the double coincidence of wants, the endless arguments over value, the impossibility of dividing a cow, the heartbreak of watching your wealth rot away in a barn. These problems became crippling. The simple system of direct trade could not handle the scale and anonymity of a more complex world. It became a bottleneck, a source of friction that slowed down commerce and frustrated progress. The story of barter is a perfect example of how human innovation is so often born from frustration. The problems were not a sign of failure, but a powerful catalyst for change. They force people to search for a better way to experiment with new ideas like commodity money. Trading a pot for some fish, trading a cow for blocks of salt, trading salt for pieces of silver was a long and gradual evolution. Each step was an attempt to solve the very real, very frustrating problems of the system that came before it. The invention of money was not a sudden stroke of genius. It was the final answer to a question that barter had been asking for centuries. Person bartering a goat scales of value. Cow versus chicken's rotting pile of grain. Person holding an early stamped coin and smiling. Section 2, the next revolution. Section 2, the next revolution. In the end, humanity's first economic system taught us a crucial lesson. It showed us that for trade to flourish on a grand scale, we needed something more than just goods and services. We needed a tool that was universally accepted, easily divisible, durable enough to store for the future, and portable enough to carry across vast distances. The long and difficult experience with barter was essentially a process of writing the job description for what would become money. The frustrations of direct trade forced our ancestors to invent a new technology, one that would fundamentally reshape human civilization in ways they could never have imagined. The move from barter to currency was more than just a simple upgrade in how we shop. It was a revolution. The invention of coins and standardized money would unlock possibilities that were previously unthinkable. It allowed for the creation of vast empires, funding massive armies, and building monumental structures through systematic taxation. It fueled the growth of international trade networks, connecting distant corners of the globe in a web of commerce. It created new professions, new social classes, and new sources of power. The world we live in today is, in many ways, a world that money built. The story does not end here. The headaches of barter were solved, but the invention of money created a whole new set of challenges and opportunities. How did these small, stamped pieces of metal change the nature of power? How did they allow governments to control their populations in new ways? How did the concepts of debt, interest, and finance transform warfare and politics forever? The journey from a simple handshake deal to a global financial system is a dramatic tale of power, innovation, and unintended consequences. It's a story that continues to shape our lives every single day, and we will explore that very story in our next video. We will see how the first coins were forged, how they spread across the ancient world, and how they gave rulers unprecedented power over taxes, trade, and even war. The transition away from barter was just the beginning of humanity's long and complicated relationship with money. Thank you for joining us on this journey back in time. If you enjoyed this exploration of our economic past, Be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and ring the notification bell so you don't miss our next chapter in the incredible story of money, power, and history. End